skip. But when does this game get fucking good?
Hello everyone, this is Alchemist back at it again with another video. I took a nice 3 to 4 week break just to take a little ease off Destiny. Guardian games wasn't really attracting me, as you could tell from the early clip, but here we are, I'm ready to get back into it. So, for the uninitiated, we have a content drop around April 9th named Into the Light. Now, what I like about this content drop is that it's a standalone piece of content, which I believe is amazing because it doesn't require an almost 4-hour video to basically play this part of the game. Another part I like is that it comes with this new game mode called Onslaught. You go out there, you defend one of 3 possible locations, and you continue to do this for 10 waves. This trend continues until 50 waves have been completed, with every wave tier moving on to a different location, and every 6 waves that you clear will land you into a pyramid ship. There will be defenses littered across the ground provided by shacks that can be built in exchange for scrap. These defenses could be raised until level 3, which with enough investment will set them to their maximum potential. You can buy these investments within the purchase phase of each wave. This option includes tripwires, which damage enemies who walk across it, as well as turrets that fire upon enemies when they're in the vicinity. However, do be noted that these defenses can and will be destroyed by enemies, so it would be better use of your time to practice resource management and adjust accordingly to your team's needs. Speaking of teams, I believe there's always amazing room for speculation on what could likely work within a game mode like this, given the footage we've received so far. So, within this segment, I'll be throwing out subclasses that I believe will perform best within this area, for all 3 classes. Starting off with Hunter, because A, that's the class I main, and B, we won Guardian games, so I think it's fair. So I think that the overall best choice for Hunter would be a Deadfall Night Stalker using Orpheus rigs. For many of you, this is likely not a big surprise. However, having a 30% buff that you, your buddies, and the turrets around you could potentially partake in would be absolutely amazing for this game mode. Not only that, but with the added density ramping up every few waves, it'll be easier to siphon your super over and over and over within a handful of seconds. This build will likely be the best for boss damage and add control overall. Next up is Strand Hunter with Shackle Grenade. I think many exotics have great strand synergies, however I think that Foe Tracer is one of the best to use with this. Intrinsically within this strand kit, we have Thread of Generation, which gives us grenade energy for the damage that we create, as well as Whirling Maelstrom, which creates a Beyblade that slowly damages our enemies passively. This aspect and fragment will synergize to get us more Shackle Grenades. When Foe Tracer comes into play, if we damage a boss or a major with our ability, we get a ×4 matching surge to our element. That is a 25% surge damage boost to all our strand weapons. This makes weapons like the Quicksilver Storm and the Cataphract GL3 all the more enticing. And if you have bait and switch on the Cataphract GL3 and is strengthened by the Foe Tracer buff, you get a 55% damage bonus on Justice Grenade Launcher total, which is absolutely massive with this type of weapon for its reserved buff. Not to mention that Quicksilver Storm stores its own grenades for as long as you're shooting an enemy. And it also takes advantage of the 25% surge buff. As long as you have decent weapons, the Strand build is an amazing option for you. Next up is the Shards of Kellanor Blade Barrage Hunter. Whilst I think that Celestial Nighthawk is amazing, I would much prefer more damage across ad clear and bosses instead of pure destructive boss damage itself. With this build, you'd pair up Dragon's Breath with Scatter Signal, drop your super, and combine the tick damage of Dragon's Breath with the overall damage of the Fusion Rifle Scatter Signal to improve your regen of your solar super. If you do not by any chance have Scatter Signal, there's also the Eremite, and if you don't have that, there's also the Cartesian Coordinate. It's a pretty good build for overall damage. Alternatively, you could also use Sunshot and Apex Predator if you prefer overall base utility over the super regen you get from the previously aforementioned build. But with that concludes our Hunter set. Now it's time for you Warlocks. One of the best lockdown builds that I believe is for Warlocks is Osmiomancy Gloves paired with Stasis Warlock, also commonly known as Stasis Turret Warlocks. They are able to freeze and control the area with the greatest of ease, and can further chain freezing by killing frozen enemies. Who needs turrets for scrap when you could literally poop them out with ice magic? Who would have known? Next up is the Threadling build. The exotic boots, the Swarmers, are an excellent choice for this strand subclass, as destroying a tangle would spawn a Threadling. Also, your Threadlings unravel targets that they damage. And attacking an unraveled enemy will cause threats to burst out to the target and attack other nearby targets. When they're hit with this, the target also becomes unraveled. Upon an enemy final blow, the unraveled target becomes a tangle. So already you can see the synergy that Swarmers provides with this subclass. Another add-on that you could have is Wishkeeper, which can come with the Hatchling refit, which allows precision final blows or rapid final blows with a non-precision weapon to spawn a threadling at the fallen enemy's location. Enemies who get killed with the Wishkeeper's threadlings will contribute to Wishkeeper's Snare Weaver stacks. This will allow the Wishkeeper to suspend enemies more often and deal more total damage. This paired with Thread of Evolution, to enable threadlings to travel farther and deal more damage, will breathe room for an amazing lockdown build, especially when adding threadling grenades into the mix. But that includes our overview with Threadling Warlock. Now it's time for the Solar class. An honorable mention, however, would go to Sunbracers. It is a very reliable build, and is pretty great lockdown with its solar grenades. However, I want to limit this to about 3 builds per class, and I want to dedicate the slot to fully maxing out our support abilities with Well of Radiance Warlock. For that to happen, that involves the inclusion of Cenotaph Mask. Adding a trace rifle, such as Divinity, or the Appetence Trace Rifle with Overflow and One for All, you could damage an enemy target. Once damaged, they are marked, and if your ally defeats a target, you get special ammo, and your allies get heavy ammo in return. This is such a fantastic exotic, where running 2 of them is more than ideal, as it means that everyone gets a chance to have heavy ammo. But even 1 is more than enough. And with the addition that makes grenade launchers more ammo efficient, this could prove very valuable, especially if we're using things like the Parasite, or perhaps any decent legendary grenade launcher that's in your arsenal. But for that concludes Warlocks, and next up is the Titans. Honestly, I think for Titans, Hoyle Arc Titan is really, really good. Yep, Heart of Inmost Light is a really good option to use with Titan. It has a lot of uptime with its grenade and melee, and the damage amp that you get for using Heart of Inmost Light is absolutely massive. Keep this build in your back pocket, Titans, as it's very useful. But next up is one of the best, the creme de la creme, if I do say so myself. It is no doubt the Strand Titan. Paired with either Wormgod Caress or Syntheseps, pick your poison. I do prefer Syntheseps, as it allows me to turn my brain off and is overall more consistent. But with those 2, you can have amazing melee damage increases, and it can go skyrocket even farther if you have something like a 1-2 punch shotgun on your hand, which is what you should be doing if you want to take this build to the next level. With the Strand buff like Banner of War that allows for higher damage scaling and survivability, all for the low cost of getting a melee kill. This result can further be amplified with something like Tractor Cannon, providing a 30% boost to damage. Next up is a build I think a lot of people will know from the Titan community. It is Void Titan with Peregrine Greaves. I think this combination is really good. Peregrine Greaves states that all shoulder charge abilities, Seismic Strike, Hammer Strike, and Shield Bash deal bonus damage when activated in the air. Damaging mini-bosses, tormentors, or champions with your shoulder charge will refund your melee. It also provides airborne effectiveness, but we really don't care about that. In the footage that we see a lot of yellow bars and mini-bosses that are there. We don't even need to kill the enemies, we just need to damage them. So being able to spam Peregrine Strike over and over and over again will be no problem for this build. And with the fact that you're using Void to increase your overall damage percentage, well, this often gives free reign for a lot of you to slay out with this build. And say that you have a Night Stalker in your team, or you find their team's doing a lot of Void, you could also run this with Solar. The effect is effectively the same. For the enemies that are in this game, if you don't kill the enemies in 1 hit, then the next hit will definitely do them in. But that concludes my speculation. I will be posting a video later involving my feelings about the weapons. It's just this video was already long enough, and I didn't want to drag it out. With that said, thank you for listening, Guardians, and I hope you have a good one.